Gene Hackman's death was not simply a tragedy. It was a deliberate elimination, a bloody drama staged by those who knew too much about him. The FBI has just released a list of the most suspicious individuals, and it's more shocking than anyone imagined. Friends, close associates, even family members. Who betrayed Hackman? Who pushed him into eternal darkness? And what awaits ahead? There is only one truth, and it will send shivers down the world's spine. Chapter 1. A Hollywood Tragedy, or Something More. New Mexico, a cold morning. The log cabin where Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, lived was quiet under a gray sky. No one could have imagined that, inside, a silent tragedy had unfolded. When the police received the call, they didn't expect to witness such a strange scene. Hackman, one of Hollywood's greatest actors, had passed away. So had Betsy Arakawa. But what really happened in that house? When news of Hackman appeared in the newspapers, the public's first reaction was shock. Hackman had almost disappeared from Hollywood for the past 2 decades, enjoying a peaceful life in New Mexico with the wife he had loved for many years. No paparazzi, no interviews, no public events, just him, Betsy, and peaceful days in nature. And now they were gone. Hollywood was shaken. Old colleagues like Robert Duvall, Dustin Hoffman, and Clint Eastwood expressed their grief. But even amidst the condolences, there was a lingering sense of unease. What really happened? According to preliminary reports, Hackman died of heart disease. It was said that in the last week of his life, he was disoriented due to Alzheimer's. No one found him until it was too late. Betsy Arakawa, his wife, was also found deceased. The cause determined to be hantavirus, a rare disease transmitted by rodents. 2 people gone, just days apart. For many, this might be a heartbreaking but reasonable tragedy. However, the police didn't think so. They haven't closed the case. There are still irregularities. Irregularity number 1. How severe was Hackman's Alzheimer's? In his later years, Hackman rarely appeared in public, leading many to believe he had severe Alzheimer's. However, his friends and neighbors told a different story. They said Hackman was still lucid. He still drove himself to the supermarket, chatted with acquaintances, and even wrote some notes for the book he was working on. So, why did the report say he was disoriented all week before he passed away? If Hackman didn't have severe dementia, why didn't he call for help? Irregularity number 2. Hantavirus. A strange coincidence. Hantavirus is an extremely rare disease in the United States. It is transmitted through rodent feces or urine, but the number of hantavirus deaths in the past decade can be counted on one hand. Strangely, Betsy Arakawa wasn't the type to be easily infected. She didn't work in high-risk areas. Their house was well maintained, with no signs of mice or other rodents. So, where did the hantavirus come from? Why did it appear just when Hackman was also in trouble? Is this really a coincidence? Irregularity number 3. No signs of an emergency call. Police checked the call history of Hackman and Betsy in their last week. There were no emergency calls, no signs of anyone trying to seek help. That doesn't make sense. If Hackman was so disoriented that he couldn't save himself, couldn't Betsy call for help? If Betsy was seriously ill, wouldn't Hackman have noticed something was wrong? But they were both silent. No one called for help. No one asked the neighbors for help. Why? What did the police say? Although the official cause has been announced, investigators have not closed the case. An unnamed officer revealed to the media, "There's loopholes. There are loopholes. There are inconsistencies. And until the police can find a reasonable explanation, they will continue to investigate." What really happened inside the home of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa? Will Hollywood accept that this is just a natural tragedy, or is there another truth being hidden? Chapter 2. The Silent House. A week of unanswered questions. The house stood amidst the desolate landscape of New Mexico, where Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, had lived peacefully for many years. But in the last week of February, that silence suddenly turned into a haunting presence. Betsy passed away on February 18th. Gene Hackman lived alone for 7 days after that. No emergency calls, no text messages, no one saw him seek help. So what really happened inside that house? A 95-year-old man, surviving a week in absolute silence. Despite being a Hollywood icon, a strong man with an illustrious career, age spares no one. Medical reports stated that Hackman was disoriented due to Alzheimer's after his wife passed away, but this made the police even more suspicious. If Hackman was truly so severely affected by Alzheimer's that he was unaware of his surroundings, how could he have lived a week without assistance? No one saw him leave the house. No one heard any sounds. No one found traces of food or drink being used more than usual. Could a 95-year-old man take care of himself in a disoriented state for 7 days without any help? No emergency calls. Why didn't Hackman seek help? One of the strangest things about this case is Hackman's absolute silence. He didn't call the police. He didn't ask the neighbors for help. He didn't reach out to any family or friends. The landline phone was still in its place. Hackman's cell phone was placed right on his desk, but no calls were made during those 7 days. This wasn't a sudden accident. He had time to react. Why didn't Hackman do anything? Irregularities in survival traces. What did Hackman really do during those 7 days? Police examined the kitchen and refrigerator in Hackman's house. There were no signs of any meals being prepared during the past week. They checked the sink, the bathroom. There were no signs of water being used more than usual. The doors were still locked from the inside. So what did Hackman do during those 7 days? Was he really alive all week, or had he passed away earlier without anyone knowing? Gene Hackman had a pacemaker, a device that monitors heart rate and can send signals to a medical center if any problems occur. The last time Hackman's pacemaker signal was recorded was on February 18th, the same day Betsy passed away. After that, no more signals. If Hackman really survived until February 26th, why didn't the pacemaker record any more signals from his heart? From February 18th to February 26th, there were no traces of Gene Hackman's existence. No one saw him. No one heard any sounds from the house. No one received any messages or calls from him. It was as if he had disappeared from this world right after February 18th. But if so, why did it take 8 days for someone to find him? What really happened in that house? The police still don't have the answers. But they know this story isn't over. Chapter 3. The Dog in the Closet. An Ominous Clue? Gene Hackman's New Mexico mansion was vast and silent, enveloped by the gloomy atmosphere of an unsolved tragedy. The police entered, their footsteps echoing on the cold wooden floors. Traces of death remained. An incomplete story. Fragmented details like pieces of a puzzle that couldn't be pieced together. But no one expected that one of the most important clues would come from a small creature. A dog. During the search of the house, police discovered an irregularity in Hackman's master bathroom. A closet door was closed. There were no signs of forced entry, nothing suspicious. But when an investigator opened the door, a shocking sight appeared before them. Inside, in a small cage, Zinna the dog was dead. The police were stunned. Zinna didn't die of old age, not from an accident, but was locked in a confined space without water, without food. But what was even stranger? Why was Zinna there? Who put it in the closet? Gene Hackman had 3 dogs. Zinna, a small dog closest to Betsy Arakawa. Bear, a larger dog with a strong appearance. Nikita, the other dog, also a large breed. Strangely, only Zinna was dead, while Bear and Nikita were still alive, though they seemed panicked. Bear and Nikita avoided human eye contact, whimpered, and showed signs of unease. When the police approached them, both trembled, pressed against the wall as if they had witnessed something terrible. Dogs are animals with keen instincts. They don't react like that for no reason. What happened in this house? Zinna's death wasn't just a coincidence. Just a few days before Hackman and Betsy were discovered, Zinna had undergone medical surgery. Betsy Arakawa, an animal lover, was very concerned about Zinna's health. But strangely, instead of being in a warm place to recover, Zinna was locked in a cage inside a closed closet. This raises many questions. Why was a dog that had just had surgery locked in such a cramped space? Who put it there? If Hackman was really disoriented due to Alzheimer's, would he still be lucid enough to do this? If Hackman didn't do it, then who did? There was something that confused the police even more. Hackman had lived alone in this house for 7 days after his wife passed away. No calls for help, no messages sent. But if Hackman had really lost consciousness due to Alzheimer's, how could he have functioned normally during those 7 days? Moreover, Zinna died during this time, meaning it was locked in the closet while Hackman was still alive. Did he do it, or did someone else put Zinna in the closet? One of the hypotheses the police put forward was that someone had appeared in the house during this time. If Hackman wasn't lucid enough to lock Zinna in the closet himself, then who did? Police re-examined the entire scene, looking for signs of a third party. No signs of forced entry, no security cameras recording anyone entering or leaving, no strange fingerprints in the house. If someone had entered the house, how did they do it? And what did they do? Was Zinna a witness to a terrifying truth? Police began to put forward a more terrifying hypothesis. Zinna may have witnessed something it shouldn't have seen. If there was a fight, an attack in the house, Zinna may have reacted. If someone wanted to hide something, they may have locked Zinna in the closet so it couldn't get out. Or worse, they did it to dispose of an important piece of evidence. Bear and Nikita were still alive, but their reactions weren't like normal dogs. They didn't bark loudly, but just cowered in fear as if they had witnessed something horrific. What really happened in this house? Signs from Zinna's surgery. Is it related? Data from the veterinary clinic showed that Zinna had undergone surgery just a week before being locked in the closet. Was this a coincidence? What disease did Zinna have? Did anyone interfere with its health? Did someone intentionally make Zinna a factor in this case? Police began to review Zinna's entire medical record, but what they found couldn't explain why it was locked in the closet. Zinna's death may just be a tragic coincidence, or it may be a crucial link in an even darker story. What's certain is Zinna couldn't lock itself in the closet. Hackman may not have been lucid enough to do it. The other 2 dogs were alive, but very panicked. So who locked Zinna in there? This question remains unanswered, but it has opened up a whole new line of investigation. This case may not be as simple as everyone thinks. Chapter 4. The Cell Phone Mystery. What did Betsy know? Gene Hackman's sprawling New Mexico home was once a peaceful sanctuary, but now it was just a mysterious crime scene where 2 people had passed away without anyone knowing exactly what happened. Every clue led to the same question. What really happened to Betsy Arakawa before she passed away? And to answer that question, police began to revisit the most important clue: her phone. Throughout the period before Hackman passed away, there was no activity from his phone. No emergency calls, no messages sent, no signs that Hackman had contacted anyone for help. If he truly had Alzheimer's, as the official report stated, his lack of phone use could be explained, But at the same time, it raised another suspicion. Was he really completely disoriented? Or did someone take his phone? If he wasn't lucid enough to use the phone, then who was in the house with him during that time? This became even stranger when police began to examine Betsy Arakawa's phone, and what they found could change the entire direction of the investigation. Betsy's phone was still there, placed right on the kitchen table. But strangely, all her messages stopped after February 11th. No messages sent after that day, no calls made, no signs that she tried to contact anyone when her health deteriorated. This was completely unusual. Betsy was an active woman, regularly communicating with friends and family. If she really had hantavirus, she would have had symptoms like fever, fatigue, and shortness of breath for several days. It's impossible that she didn't contact anyone to talk about her condition. So why did all her communications suddenly stop? Police continued to review her message history and discovered a strange thing in the last messages. Betsy had texted a close friend on the morning of February 11th. The content of the message wasn't special, just a normal conversation. "I'm feeling a little off today, maybe just tired. Talk later." Betsy's friend texted back to check on her, but never received a response, and then complete silence. This led to an important question. Was Betsy really just tired on February 11th, or did she feel signs of something worse? If she had hantavirus, why were there no signs that she sought medical help? But more importantly, what did she do right before she disappeared? Betsy's last appearance on CCTV police retrieved data from surveillance cameras in the area and found the last images of Betsy Arakawa alive. On the afternoon of February 11th, she appeared at a pharmacy in Santa Fe, about a 15-minute drive from her home. She wore a thick gray coat. She bought some cold medicine, hand sanitizer, and a large bottle of water. She left the pharmacy around 3:40 p.m., driving towards her home. That was the last time she was seen alive. Why the pharmacy? Did she feel unwell? Did she suspect she had an illness? Or was she trying to buy medicine for Gene Hackman? No one knew the answer. After Betsy left the pharmacy that afternoon, no one saw or heard from her again. No messages, no calls, no signs that she contacted anyone. If Betsy really had hantavirus, she must have had symptoms for several days before passing away. But if so, why were there no signs that she tried to contact anyone? And a more important question: did her phone really stop working right after February 11th? Or did someone erase the traces? Police began to examine hidden data on the phone, looking for any deleted calls or hidden messages. But before they could do that, another discovery changed the entire case. When investigating the SIM data, police noticed a strange gap in Betsy's phone log. From February 11th to February 14th, there were no calls. But on February 15th, there was an unusual signal, a call that was cut off after just 2 seconds. Who called? Why was the call cut off immediately? Was Betsy still alive on February 15th? Or did someone else touch her phone? These gaps couldn't just be a coincidence. Police began to suspect that Betsy had discovered something before she passed away. Did she try to contact someone but didn't make it? Did someone block her call? Was her phone manipulated to hide the truth? The deeper they dug into the case, the more the police realized that things weren't as simple as they thought. Gene Hackman's death may just be part of a much larger mystery. And if Betsy's phone was really tampered with, it meant that someone intentionally hid something. The only question was, what was it? Chapter 5. The Locked Room Enigma. Was it just an accident? The mudroom, the small room between the garage and the main entrance of the house, was where Gene Hackman was last found. His body lay on the cold floor. Beside him were his sunglasses and familiar walking stick. His posture suggested he had fallen quickly, without time to react. But was this really just an accident? Or did something more sinister happen? The locked room. No signs of forced entry. But was no one there? As soon as the police entered the scene, they realized something important. No signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle, no objects disturbed. Everything in the mudroom was intact, except for Hackman's motionless body. The front door was locked from the inside. The windows were all closed. Security cameras didn't record anyone entering or leaving during that week. So how did Hackman fall there? And if he was really alone in the house for 7 days, why didn't anyone receive any signs from him? Hackman's appearance when found suggested something unusual. He showed no signs of trying to get up. The walking stick was neatly beside him, with no signs of being thrown away or hitting the floor. The sunglasses fell neatly, without being broken or bent. Police hypothesized. Could he have passed out immediately from a heart attack? Or did he see something that startled him? Was someone in the house with him at that moment? A normal fall is usually accompanied by signs of struggle. A hand reaching out for balance, a scratch mark on the floor. But here, there was nothing. Hackman's house was in a secluded area, but even so, there were neighbors not far away. No one heard any sounds. No one heard a cry for help. No one reported any unusual activity around his house. So if Hackman fell from a heart attack, didn't he have time to call for help? Why were there no calls from him during that week? Did someone deliberately do something to ensure he couldn't call anyone? Police reviewed his entire contact history, but found no signs of emergency calls. The biggest question was, did someone come and go without the police finding out? When checking the security cameras around Hackman's house, police discovered a gap in the data on February 18th, the day the last signal from Hackman's pacemaker was recorded. Does this mean someone came that day? Did they meet Hackman? Were they related to his death? What did they do during the time the camera lost signal? Even stranger, from February 18th to February 26th, the security camera didn't record any movement in the house. Does this mean Hackman lay there for that long without anyone knowing? Or did someone delete the data to hide something? One notable detail: why was Hackman wearing sunglasses indoors? Was the light bothering him? Or was he preparing to go somewhere? Did someone come to the house and he went to greet them? As for the walking stick, an object Hackman always used to move, why was it right next to him without signs of being thrown away or broken? If he had fallen hard, the stick should have fallen at a different angle, not right next to him, as if it had been placed down neatly. These small details can say a lot. Did someone come on that fateful day? With all of the above, police began to wonder, did someone come on February 18th? Was that person the cause of Hackman's fall? How did they leave without leaving a trace? Assuming someone was in the house, they could have manipulated the scene to make everything look like a natural accident. Police are examining every piece of the case, but the deeper they go, the more unanswered questions they find. And as they continue to dig into the secrets of the house, a terrifying truth begins to emerge. Chapter 6, The Final Loophole. What are they not telling us? Gene Hackman's house has become desolate. The walls are still there, but the mystery inside remains unsolved. Although the police have released the cause of death, Hackman died of heart disease after a week of disorientation due to Alzheimer's, and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, died of hantavirus. They have not officially closed the case. There are too many gaps in this story, and there is something they are not saying. Police sent Zinna's body for forensic examination. Anyone who has ever owned a dog knows one thing. If something unusual happens in the house, they will react. But instead of being found in the living room or garden, where Zinna could have run away or barked to signal danger, it was locked in a closet in the bathroom, an extremely unusual location. Who locked Zinna in there? Was it in there before Betsy passed away? Or was it locked up after Hackman fell? The other two dogs, Bear and Nikita, are still alive, but in a panicked state. They don't dare leave their owners, are always timid, and show signs of extreme stress. This raises a more terrifying question. Did something happen in this house that the three dogs sensed? And if Zina was really poisoned, could that be evidence that someone intentionally set it all up? Betsy's phone has been data recovered, and investigators are analyzing the last messages before she passed away. The last time Betsy was seen was on CCTV at a pharmacy on February 11th. Police believe she was feeling unwell at the time, but no one knows exactly how she returned home. Did she text anyone to report that she was sick? Did anyone visit her in her final days? Did Betsy try to call for help, but no one answered? Strangely, after February 11th, her phone had no activity. No calls, no messages, no signs that she contacted anyone. An unusual silence. Hackman's phone was also completely empty, with no calls during the 7 days after his wife passed away. Does this make sense? A person with Alzheimer's may forget many things, but the instinct for survival remains. If Hackman knew his wife had passed away, why didn't he try to call someone? Or did someone ensure that he couldn't do that? The pieces of the case still don't fit together perfectly. Let's review all the irregularities. Betsy died of hantavirus, a rare disease transmitted by rodents, but no one knows exactly when she contracted the virus. Hackman lived alone for 7 days without asking anyone for help, which is not logical for a person with late-stage Alzheimer's. Zina the dog was locked in a closet and died mysteriously while the other two dogs were still alive, but panicked. There were no signs of forced entry, but the security camera had a gap on February 18th. So, what really happened? Was Hackman really alone in that house? Did someone come and go without the police finding out? If it was really an accident, why are there so many details that cannot be explained logically? One thing is certain, the police have not given a final answer. Although the investigators have released the cause of death, they have left the case open and continue to analyze the evidence. Zina's forensic report is still pending. Data from Betsy's phone is still being deciphered. Experts are still checking the security camera to see if there are any signs of tampering. If this was really just a series of random tragedies, why haven't the police closed the case? The biggest question remains, were Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa simply victims of a cruel fate? Or is something more sinister being hidden? The case is still open and perhaps it will never be closed. There are too many gaps, too many details that cannot be explained logically. Was this really a random tragedy, or is there a terrifying truth being hidden? The police are waiting for the final investigation results, but the biggest question remains, do we really want to know the truth?